This year's conference has been tagged Connecting the Dots. I will tell you a bit more about that. But now, if you're an exhibitor and you're out at the exhibition section, please come in with your delegates. The conference is about to begin. The conference this year is Connecting the Dots. That is the drivers, opportunities, transformation, and sustainability of the real estate industry. To discuss these 4 points in the deliberations today, there will be 4 panels. We will meet the panelists as we go along.
If you're building your estate, you have to do your secondary infrastructure. You have to provide all the secondary infrastructure. Even sometimes primary infrastructure. You have to do roads. And unfortunately also, we don't have a regime in this country that allows you to take tax credit without, if you watch Dangote, when he commissioned the plant in Zambia, I watched him on the telly. It was standing on the road, which Dangote Cement was doing for that area. And he said government had already given them tax credit for that road, which they were doing. You know, we also need to get to a level where government recognizes that even though we cannot provide all the infrastructure, if a private developer, for example, creates access to a particular place, you know, government should recognize that. You know, but yeah, to even get, do you know that, to even get approval to do that road, even to get approval, because you cannot just jump on the road and start to do it, and you still have to pay for approval to do the road, and you don't get any benefit for it.
Just to mention, I guess one thing that can actually be done is investor awareness, because looking at the UPDC REIT, for instance, this clamor for retail investors, over 90% of the investment was done by institutional investors, the same set of investors who know about real estate. The average individual still wants to own, I want to know I own the building in my name. You don't have enough money to own the building in your name. Why don't you go through a collective pool which allows you to earn the returns of owning that asset? I guess some mindset change has to come into place before that need that you mentioned can be addressed.
Promoting vehicles for investing in real estate. And just to add to what Mr. Gunniman said about the history of REITs in the US, one of the driving forces for REITs is actually the tax benefits that it creates. Now in the US, about 20% of the GDP is derived from tax revenues. Everybody's taxed. They say the only thing certain are death and taxes. You will pay your taxes. So REITs are an investment vehicle through which the income is not taxed at the company level. And company tax levels in the US are about 35%. They're taxed at the individual level. And people have somewhat latitude to determine what their tax bracket that they fit in, depending on, you know, what expenses they have, what tax write-offs they have. So that is a great incentive for the REIT industry to develop, because these companies are able to acquire assets. They constantly have to churn those assets, sell them, because they have to distribute their income, whatever income they have, and distribute, I think it's 80% or 90% of the income, and therefore they won't be taxed at that level.
I think before I go and talk about the pension, just want to give and share an anecdote in terms of infrastructure development and working with governments. So we just opened a mall in Nairobi called the Garden City Mall. It was opened up because there was a major investment on an interstate road that was built, and to get to the site where we're building the mall, there needed to be some additional infrastructure put in place. So I remember sitting when we're discussing projects, and my colleagues who are based in Nairobi speaking about the fact that they need government to actually put on a new roundabout. It would require actual acquiring land where properties have been built up. There's a petrol station, and then creating a new access onto that. For me, it was beyond belief, because I could never sit across a table and put those proposals on the table. The same government is going to build a new roundabout for you. Beyond that, they're going to acquire existing properties for public use and then hand over that and create a path for you. And within the last 2 years, all of this has come into fruition. Obviously, some contribution had to be made on the project itself. I'm not quite sure in terms of whether we got there on the tax benefit, but having the government actually working with you, because they understand, as we've said, the actual contribution of what those real estate projects will give.
Please, a round of applause for my panel, first of all, please. Thank you very much.
Okay, I mean, of course, real estate development is largely driven by demography because one of the reasons why this country is so attractive to foreign investors is because of our huge population, and when you have a growing middle class, there's going to be demand for houses that you build. There'll be demand for retail outlets when you build. I always give a simple example that Johannesburg with 4 million people, there are over 66 shopping malls. So Lagos State with 17, 20 million people will easily take 30 shopping malls. So our demography is a great advantage, and we need to harness that advantage. But we need the right environment. We need government as developers. We need government to create an environment that enables us to do our business in terms of easing the rates on transfer cost, easing the rules on permitting and approval, and creating a regime that gives a good title to land. Such that that once you invest in a particular project, you won't have somebody coming 4 or 5 years later to say that something is wrong with your title. These are the things that we need to pay attention to, and I believe that that will take us forward.